Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with a Nurgle vs. Cathay showdown. It's going to be the Exalted Great Unclean One here against the Dragon-Blooded Lord of Yang. And it's going to be a very nasty build here for Cathay. A little bit of a funny story. So I'm facing off against the Great Doctor here. He is playing Cathay. And he mentioned to me as we were loading in and talking in Discord, he's like, do you believe in karma? And this is actually a build I used against another Nurgle player on stream, and he had seen it and saw how gross it was against the forces of Nurgle. And he was kind of punishing me for my filthy Cathay play from the days of past. As such, it is going to be double Skyjunk up in the sky, and the whole idea with this build is these Skyjunks are quite exceptional against Nurgle infantry, and even when they do run out of ammo, they still have not infinite ammo, but a ton of ammo with their crane gunners, which sit atop that. So what you need to do is, when you run out of ammo with the Skyjunk, basically what you do is you need to turn on toggle fire at will again, because it turns off when it runs out of ammo, but if you turn it back on, the crane gunners are going to keep shooting basically for the, until the sun and stars die out. It's really, really good value for sure. So Great Long Riders secure the sky, and the whole principle behind this build is you annihilate the Nurgle Air Force using Long Riders and usually like a Dragon Lord like Miao Ying or the Iron Dragon, and you clear out Nurgle's Air Force, and then they're just pretty much at your mercy. Nurgle is one of the worst factions in the game at killing big things. Not very good at it. You can get in there with a Great Unclean One, and that's why I knew to bring one here, because I have done this against Nurgle many, many times, and if you don't have a Great Unclean One, like Terracotta Sentinels are going to take 10 years for your army to kill, and then that allows the Skyjunks in their aerial superiority to really dunk on you. So it's very scary. So yeah, it's double Terracotta with Peasant Spearmen hidden all over the map, because if he has his army in one spot, what I'm able to do is basically just, basically kill all the infantry, and then he only has an air force, and it gives me a little bit more agency. Whereas if he splits them all up over the map, it's very hard for the slow-moving Nurgle to do anything, and the flying Great Long Riders can hunt them down. Thankfully, though, since it was a build that I had used against Nurgle and was scheming about, I was a little bit familiar and kind of thought he might do something similar. I didn't know he would bring the exact same build, more or less, but we do have the Plague Drones of Nurgle. So two of these guys I figured at 1,300 gold with their armor piercing and poison, they're going to trade very effectively into Longbows, backed up by Furies, and also using the healing of the big Chungus on the ground. And the rest of the army is just Forsaken, Cultists of Nurgle, as well as some Nurglings on both sides. I was expecting like a really entrenched cannon position from my opponent, like on the backside of the map that would just be kind of pounding in with, very traditional Cathay. But you always have to bring an Air Force. If you are playing Nurgle and you don't bring an Air Force to fight against Cathay's Air Force, you've kind of already seeded the game, in my opinion. Most Cathay players, I think, are going to have at least one junk up in that trunk, and you're not going to want any of that. So let's see how this goes, and if we can defeat the dreaded Cathay build. And what's really cool about both Nurgle and Cathay in land battles is that they're quite a bit better. Cathay, I would say, is a really strong faction in land battles. Nurgle is more of like a counterpick faction. They're very good against Khorne, they're very good against Slaanesh, and they're also quite exceptional, not exceptional, but decent against Cathay. I would say like a 50-50 matchup if you bring a proper Air Force. So we got our first Air Force fight here. It's going to be Chaos Furies backed up by Plague Drones, and the Long Riders are getting the Jade Shield, which gives them a ton of ward save. And the big Chungus down here on the ground is going to be dropping some heals. It almost makes me think that maybe I should bring like a Flying Herald, but my concern about the Herald is if I don't have like a big brawler character, I feel like I really struggle to deal with Terracottas and Miao Ying and all that sort of nasty stuff. But the sky fight's going pretty good. Here the two Long Riders are poisoned. I have tons of armor piercing, and the first heal that I did use on the injured unit of Plague Drones was able to bring them back up to full health. But the junks up in that trunk, as I said, are doing some pretty massive damage. You can see the missiles going all the way downtown against the Nurglings, but it was actually pretty, convenient that I vanguarded my Nurglings up on the hills here, because I wanted to get an envelop and flank his sides with the Nurglings, but he tried to hide his peasants from me, and the Nurglings just kind of happen to be nearby, which is great, and the Nurglings do handily defeat Peasant Long Spearmen in combat, so that was a pretty big win. But the Air Force fight really is going to be one of the bigger elements of this game. But even if I do win it, I still have to deal with Terracottas. My ground-based force of Forsaken is getting just absolutely pounded over here. These ones are very, very low. And up in the hills, it's going okay. The Nurglings will come in the fourth quarter and hopefully be helpful. But yeah, so far, honestly, really tough fight. The Skyjunks shooting into my Forsaken and providing their Crane Gunner firepower to support as well. I do have the two units of the Plague Drones fighting to the best of their abilities here. But the Long Riders, you can see they're trading okay, and all my Furies are gone. So I had buffering before, but now I don't. So that's why the fight went so well initially, is I had over, 1,000 gold worth of Furies fighting here, and now they're basically karate chops. So the Longman's going to be able to get in there. So I do use Curse of the Slug here as well, and I pull back the injured Plague Drone, knowing that he would want to finish it off. and buying a little bit of time maybe for Big Chungus to move back and get another big heal or something. But overall, the Plague Drones are trading well, and for 1,300, they're trading quite well into a 1,500 gold unit. I do think that longbows need a cost reduction. I think they're really overpriced. A very good unit, but I think, you know, you have Pegasus Knights for Bretonia, which costs 1,100. Why do Long Riders cost 15? You know, it's kind of a little bit of a strange thing. Anyways, down here, the rockets soaring into my Forsaken of Nurgle as they hunt down these spears, and my opponent is trying to disengage, and basically he attacks with the spears to obey the attacking rule and runs away with the Terracotta Sentinels to buy a little bit more time. But thankfully the Cultists of Nurgle, you know, they're not bad fighters. They do have 50 melee attack. They also have armor sundering, so their attacks here on the big man could potentially bring his armor down to 70 if they're able to connect, and they do, and you can see it's immediately taking some damage. I have Forsaken chasing as well, and the peasants all over the map are in danger. These ones up in the hill here are hammered by Nurglings, and the Air Force fight is really, really tight. I was able to come over with the big man. He's waving his bell to drop another heal, if I'm not mistaken. So we did just use another heal on the Plague Drones. And I had a little bit of a scheme. The reason why the big man's going over here is because I can't really catch anything. And I was thinking of maybe landing my Plague Drones on the ground and seeing if my opponent would maybe follow me to the ground. And then the big man would be able to get like a big bell shot. But honestly, the aerial fight's going pretty good. Here you can see the great Longbow Riders are being hammered down by the Plague Drones. And yeah, we're going to probably win the Air Force fight, which gives us a little bit of agency here in terms of taking down the Skyjunks. However, Skyjunks are not squishy. They have 10,000 HP as well as 80 armor, but granted, we have armor-piercing, but it's going to take like 10 years for a Plague Drone to kill one of these things, and he's almost used all of his ammo, but having some pressure on them is still very important because they do have the essential infinite ammo with their Crane Gunners once they do run out of their primary ammunition, so very, very frightening stuff indeed. So both Longbow Riders are down for the count. I think the other one's flying towards the edge of the map might come back here. And now we have the shooting coming in from these Skyjunks blasting into the Plague Drones. While on the other side of the map, we have a slight duel of fates. Forsaken against Peasants, and my poor Cultist going to get slapped here by the Terracotta Sentinel. So a little bit of a lapse in micro on my part. But thankfully those guys do heal. So that's very, very good for us. And now we get another heal from the big man. Going to be waving his old bell around. Look at him how excited and jolly he is. But the Fleshy Abundance going to go down, giving a huge heal. It's probably one of the better healing spells in the game. I mean, it's huge value. It's going to be interesting to see how the old world factions with their healing mechanics and the new percentage-based stuff works. I'm quite interested to see that. But we do have a Dragon-Blooded Lord coming in, which is a decent fighter. I mean, honestly, for a caster, 70 armor, 55, 40, very, very respectable. But the Plague Drones with the poison and yeah, the healing of Nurgle, not messing about. And I do get my other unit here to chase down the great Longbow Riders as well as these ones. Now, I believe all the spear units are being harried and pushed off the battlefield, if I'm not more mistaken. I was about to say, if I'm not Forsaken here. But the Forsaken going to move up, clear these guys off. We got our pit fight down here, and I don't know if I used a summon there. Like, there was not really any good targets for summons. He didn't bring any, like, actual quality infantry units or missile units, so honestly, my cultist summons have been a little bit lackluster, but at the end of the game, they could be something that could help. Maybe just drop them once my infantry dissipate here to the Terracottas, but I'm actually very impressed with how the Cultists of Nurgle are doing against the Terracotta Sentinel. He's been worn down a little bit, and certainly softened up for the big man who's now moving back across the map. Forsaken going to be getting a Space Jam charge here into the back to these peasants who've kind of facing the wrong direction. They're just, they've accepted their fate, and Forsaken should be able to tear them to shreds pretty darn quickly. Down to 59 models, numbers dropping very rapidly. Now here we do have the old Peasant Spearmen being chased off, but despite winning the Air Force fight, like the Lord here is doing pretty good, and also the Crane Gunners from the Skyjunks, you know, they're sitting point blank, and I don't think they're going to be missing too many of those shots there. And I am heal capped, so I did actually heal cap these Plague Drones, and we are getting the Lord low-ish. Terracotta Sentinel's going to be peeling out, so one of them running for the hill, seeing the big Chungus moving across here. Probably going to be a smart decision, as another shot does go into the back here of the Exalted Great Unclean One, and all the peasant mobs have been more or less hunted off the battlefield. So now, to spare you guys the monotony of some of this, we will do some fast forwarding. The old drones here did pretty good. I'm not complaining. We were able to break the Lord here. That did use the Celestial Scale Court, or whatever it's called, Scales of the Celestial Court. Gives him a lot of physical resist, but the joke's on him because the Plague Drones actually do magic damage and not going to be helping at all. And we do get the break right there, so the Dragon-Blooded Lord is going to be running for the hills, and we'll see how it goes. Ammo's about out on the Skyjunk, but like I said, these bad boys do have infinite ammo on that form, so I know that I have to kill the Terracotta Sentinels. That's like the most important thing, and I think we actually get close to army losses there, and my opponent withdraws, because we had a great Unclean One, as well as two Cultists with regeneration, and it was only a matter of time before we hunted down the Terracottas. We had Nurglings, Forsaken everywhere. There was no way they could handle everything, so GG, well played. So yeah, again, it was really funny before the game, because he asked me, he's like, do you believe in karma? And I was like, oh no, is it going to be like the cheesy Cathay build that I used against that poor Nurgle player on stream? But, you know, I mentioned afterwards, I'm like, you know, the thing about karma is villains in real life often win. It was like a Thanos quote or something. But Yeah, reality is often disappointing, is what I said. Yeah, pretty hilarious. But yeah, the drones were MVPs, man. 2,700 value and 1,200 on this guy. And Cultist did great, but yeah, Plague Drones, like, if I didn't have something to deal with his Longmas, like, the Junks would have just had a field day. Like, you need to put pressure on them. Otherwise, if things had gone a little bit better, if the Terracottas had maybe not, like, gotten caught like that, I think in my build I used the Dragon Lord. I can't remember. Maybe it was a Yang Lord. I can't quite recall, but the build feels very, very, like, I think it was actually the exact same as the one I had used. Although I could have sworn I had a Dragon Lord, because the Nurgle build I played against didn't have any Air Force. It was like a ground-based build with the mortars. And, you know, the Soul Grinders of Nurgle against Cathay aren't bad if they have, like, a ton of crossbows and just Jade Warriors and things like that. But I do think that the meta for Grand Cathay is going to start rotating more in this direction against Nurgle. Granted, I still think super wide shooting builds. I was kind of telling him, I was like, I think if he just gone with, like, a super wide build with, like, a cannon, I would have been punished super hard. But it's hard to say. So well played. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Certainly a great meme matchup. And we'll be back with more good times soon. Nurgle's holding on, man. They're getting some W's here and there.